Hi everybody, and thank you so much for the invite to come together in this community event tonight. My dear friend Ian Hickey was here last year. Who was here last year? Who saw Ian Hickey in his blue Italian suit? Now Ian Hickey on that night sent me a photo with Susie Lee of him dripping wet, freezing cold, and he told me, if you're going to Albury, you take every single woolly thing you have. So I have my woolly top, I have my woolly hat, I have my woolly coat, which is over there. I actually feel at the moment like I'm in Darwin, and this actually could be Mindil Markets because I'm very hot. So what I wanted to say tonight, and I'll start with, again, acknowledgement of Nancy, acknowledgement of our Indigenous people, elders past, present and future. I also want to acknowledge everyone in this community, everyone's here tonight who has lived with a mental illness, who has cared for someone with a mental illness, or who knows someone with a mental illness. And I don't believe in Australia today that there is not one person who is not touched by mental ill health. And as Jackie Crow, my dear friend and commissioner, says, the bar is set too low. For too long we have let people down. For too long people have fallen through the cracks and they have not got the right care at the right time. Community events like this are part and parcel of what we mean when we talk about mental health reform. I know I'm a big advocate of technology, but if you think about what's happening here tonight with 1,000 people, little children with their families, our young people in their bands, Headspace is here. I noticed a group of people living with a disability. I'm sure there are veterans and their families in the community. Older Australians. Community is about coming together. And tonight, while you are here in this place, sharing stories and connecting in ways that we'd never imagined when we first started Beyond Blue back in 2000, what is really amazing to me now is even when our services are not available, we can ensure that people can connect, that they can get the support that they need, that they can feel that they've got someone to reach out to. And we can only do that because for the first time in history, we have technologies that allow that. Now, I am mum to 3 beautiful little children, not dissimilar to the little children who are sitting here. My children are called Angus, who is 10, Holly, who is 8, and Harry, who is 6. And Angus lives with a very severe disability. He has both Down syndrome and autism. He cannot speak, he does not have voice. But for the first time in history, we have an opportunity to give our most disadvantaged, our most disenfranchised, our most disconnected people an opportunity to connect with others who want to hear their voice, who want to support them, who want to connect with them. And so for me, technology has become more than just about mental health reform. It is very personal because I can see what a major difference that will make to not only his life, but the lives of many of those who live with a mental illness, who are socially disconnected, who do not have the support that they need. So we have 2 things happening. We have this amazing swell, that's a Freudian slip, swell of people coming out in their communities. When we started Beyond Blue back in 2000, depression was not something that people talked about. Depression was not something that people came out into the community to talk about. Depression, anxiety, eating disorders, drug and alcohol problems, psychosis, I know you heard from Pat McGorry. They were not things that were mentioned in the community. There is so much that has happened. So many great organisations, Lifeline and Kids Helpline and Headspace, but just talking about it and reducing stigma is not enough. So we have this incredible opportunity, and tonight I think of as a night of hope, of a night of inspiration. I got into the car today and I've got 3 Greek brothers who own taxi cabs in Melbourne, and they have a community of men who all support each other. And I've been driving with them now, or they've been driving me for 6 years, and they tell these stories of the messiness of life, the challenges of life, what it means to have children who are living with a mental illness, what it means to go through a relationship breakdown. And I got into the car today and it was Steve, he's one of the brothers. And we always have a chat about what's going on, and he always wants to know what's happening, and I always want to know what's happening in his world, because he often goes across to spend time in the Greek islands, lucky him. And actually, again, I'm feeling like I'm in the Greek islands and not in Albury freezing cold. The point of this conversation, though, was he said to me, "What are you doing today?" And I said, "Well, I'm about to go to Albury. It's the winter solstice, and it's a celebration of life, and it's a celebration of hope. And it's about how we can change the way we think about mental illness to think about it in the same way that we might cardiovascular disease or cancer, where there is no stigma." But I said it's also about talking about what it means to be connected and what it means to be community and what it means to feel valued. And he said to me, "That's fascinating." He said, "Winter solstice to me," he said, "it's the shortest day in the year. And I always think of the winter solstice as every day from now on is going to be brighter. It's going to be better. It's going to be much lighter." And I thought that's a fascinating way of looking at it. It is about hope. It is about what the future holds. It is about how do we ensure that people who live with a mental illness, their families, their friends, that they actually get the support that they need. Now, when I talk about the change and the way things have changed, I grew up in country South Australia, largest lead smelting town in the southern hemisphere, known as Port Pirie. There is always someone who knows someone from Port Pirie. It is one of those towns. And when I started at Beyond Blue, I knew nothing about my own family's history whatsoever, other than that my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my father were farmers, and my father eventually came in and worked at the lead smelter because that's what people did when they got married to the local town girl. But my grandmother, on her deathbed as she was leaving this world, told Mum, "You do realise that great-grandfather took his own life on the family farm. You do realise that your husband's dad, Grandpop, went out one day and just completely lost his mind and had to be taken down to what was then known as Hillcrest, the asylum." And no one had ever talked about that. That was not mentioned. In Port Pirie, in farming communities, and I'm sure it's the same, no one ever mentioned mental health. Men were stoic and they were strong and they were brave and they didn't talk about it. And so I think now, 17 years on from Beyond Blue starting, and I remember, and I was having a look, and again, Twitter, it's an interesting space where you want to find out what's going on in the world, and there's a conversation happening between Wayne Schwass, who's a footy player, and Nathan Thompson. Who knows them? You might not, but if you do. And they were talking about Nathan Thompson in 2004 being the first football player to publicly talk about his experience with depression. And I remember it well because I was there representing Beyond Blue. And the thing that I remember the most, and in this article, and I can't read because I'm actually blind, and I can't read the paper, but I'll quote, and I'll get it wrong, but if you're interested, have a look at the article. It was in the Herald Sun. And it's Nathan Thompson talking about his own breakdown, and he talks about it as being a breakdown and saying he was so overwhelmed with his feelings. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't understand what was going on for him. His mind was constantly racing. He just did not know what was going on. And yet he was this fit, powerful footy player who was at the peak of his performance. And in the article he talks about the fact that he had this breakdown, and he had it luckily at the club where his coach, Schwabby, said to him, "Mate, what is going on?" And when he explained it to him, he said, "You need to get some support, you need to get some care, and you need to get some help." And Nathan in this article says it was a turning point for him. He was terrified about talking about it to his work colleagues, his footy players. He was terrified about losing his job. And yet this one movement by this coach who said, "Mate, we're going to support you." And I remember the next day they held a press conference, and there's a photo of it. It's him sitting next to his coach, sitting next to his captain, with his mates surrounding him. And what they said was, "We will do whatever it takes to keep you in this team." And that's important for our schools, our universities and our workplaces, because we know that people can live with a mental illness and have amazingly flourishing lives. So that story to me speaks a million words around what it means to reduce stigma. But our next step is, how do we take our most knowledgeable people and turn that into action. And I think, again, just to finish on a positive note with tech, I don't know how much time I've got, but I know I talk a lot. I'm not dissimilar to Professor Ian Hickey in that front. But to turn it to tech, when we think about the 1,000 people who are here, the hashtag for this is Winter Solstice. We think about these stories that are going out, the beautiful clips of our young people singing, the beautiful conversations that come out of events like this and the way they are shared. Stan Grant last year, Ian Hickey last year. This might be an event for 1,000 people, but through Twitter and Facebook and all of our social media contacts, it reaches hundreds of thousands of people. And when you think about the power of voice and the way in which voices can change, we are going to see a massive change in how we support people. So I'll finish with some quick resources. I've talked about Lifeline, I've talked about Beyond Blue, I've talked about Headspace, Sane. If you need support, there is support there. It is important to reach out. We are constantly talking about the ways in which we can do that. Pick up the phone, talk to a counsellor. If you feel still that it is stigmatised or that you're actually not ready to chat to someone, jump online and talk to a web counsellor. Those people are there. And if you really want to look after your mental health, and I'm going to finish on this because I've always done this and I want to get songs from you. Think about the things that keep you mentally healthy. We've listened to a lot of music tonight. Music Escape is a great app that helps you understand how you might move yourself from being angry to being happy, from being sad to being happy, from being aggressive to being calm. What are people's favourite happy songs? Any happy songs? Any happy songs from the community? Happy, I knew someone would say that, that's what people always say. But think about how you use music to lift your mood. There are great apps. Recharge is another one to help you understand sleep and activity and how that can be really good for your mental health. Getting out in the sunshine, getting 10,000 steps. Break Up, Shake Up. Kids Helpline, the number one reason people call Kids Helpline is because they're going through a relationship breakup. I remember mine. Port Pirie, it was with Darren Giannoni, the boy on a motorbike. I still remember it. I ran up the road to my nana. I fell into her arms. It was heartbreaking. For anyone who remembers their relationship breakup, there is now an app that helps you get over it. So it's called Break Up, Shake Up. Breathe, Smiling Mind, Worry Time, Conversations for Life around suicide prevention, High Res, which is one that's been created for veterans and veterans' families. They are all great resources that help you keep healthy mentally and keep you well. So I'll finish on that. Thank you. Enjoy the night. I've had a ball. Thank you.